What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Christian CEO. Today, we have a very special guest, our very first videographer on the podcast. Her name is Alyssa Hoosier. She is full-time and she started out in her career in Colorado, but recently made a very spontaneous move to Tennessee, which I'm sure we will get into that. But without further ado, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very, very good. I'm very excited for this interview, mainly because kind of like how we've talked in messages, my wife does wedding photography, which you do. So, do you do wedding photography and videography or only videography?
I do wedding photography and videography. My
Okay.
main focus is video, and I take a couple cases where I'll bring on a team and we do photo and video together, or I'll, in special occasions, just do photo. It kind of just depends.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
you are like a jack of all trades. That's awesome. Okay, sweet. So, was photography your first dive into entrepreneurship?
Yes, it was. So I had never really had I always joke when I was in third grade, I used to sell hair flowers instead of playing with all the other girls.
That's awesome.
I made little hair clips, and instead of like actually going and being a little girl and playing, I would walk around with a little shoebox and I would sell my hair flowers. I made $300 in third grade
That is
from this.
awesome.
So some say I was an entrepreneur from the very start.
That is what's so fascinating about that is like you don't want to tell people that like maybe entrepreneurship is like genetic, but it kind of seems like it is. The more people I interview, the more it seems like the second they can walk and they understand currency, they're like, how do I get that?
Yep, pretty
So
much.
that is so interesting. Okay, very good. So, what inspired you to pursue wedding photography?
Yeah, so I had always, my mom was a photographer, so she taught me pretty much everything I knew from like elementary school, middle school, high school. And I loved it. In high school, I was always setting up like photo shoots with my friends and yada, yada, yada. And then after a while, I just got super burnt out.
Mm,
It kind of got to a place where it was like, in high school, it's hard when you're a young girl trying to make friends, and it would always be like, oh, come hang out with us, bring your camera. And I was like, ugh. So eventually I kind of just lost my passion for it,
mm,
which was so weird. I remember I didn't touch a camera for an entire year and I missed it, but I didn't want to pick it up.
mm.
So then I went off to college. I actually went to school. I was going to college to be a school counselor. So
Oh,
totally different route
wow.
than where I'm at right now. I just remember feeling like so lost at college.
Mm,
I didn't feel like I was in the right place. I remember literally like the way I would describe it was my dorm was like tiny and I felt like I was in a shoebox and there was like this massive world outside with so many opportunities and I was just stuck in my shoebox.
mm,
So I there's a girl Indie Blue who makes like travel videos and I'd always loved watching those. But after a while I would find myself like staying up late at night watching videos and wedding videos and just like sobbing. Like I just loved the way that it like evoked emotion for me. And like I had a camera because my mom had passed hers down to me. So I did know the camera world. I didn't know video at all.
okay.
And so that was like totally new. But I just could not let it go. Like I constantly thought about it. It was in like everyday thoughts. I constantly was watching videos and like finding things I loved. And I just like dreamed about making one video. And so I took my friend up to Rocky Mountain National Park, I remember, and we drove up and I just like tried video for the first time and kind of decided I was gonna roll with it and just teach myself. I'm one of those people that hates instruction manuals. Like I will take however long to not read the instruction label. I'm not that type of person. I would rather just like
Awesome.
press random buttons and see what works. And I mean, that's kind of how it went. And then I realized like I want to do this for like a job. I didn't think you could, but I'm gonna make it happen. I was currently on military benefits for school at the time. And so from my dad, and so school was significantly cheaper than what it was for other people.
Mhm.
So when I went to my family and said I was going to drop out, that was kind of a hot topic.
Yep.
Um, I basically had told them, I mean, like even like my grandparents very traditional, so like the whole family had all gone to college. There wasn't anyone that hadn't been to college. And so
Mm.
I was like, and everyone kind of had the same route of like career-wise and everything. My family's like all pilots. And so for me to
Oh
be like,
wow.
I'm gonna be an entrepreneur, like it was just a new and different route from what our family all knew. And so everyone was like, you shouldn't be dropping out of school. Like, you're gonna regret this. You need backup plan. That's what everyone always told me was backup plan, backup plan. And I was like, ah, I'm just gonna make my first plan work.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's awesome.
and so I basically told my family I was like, I'm gonna drop out and I'm gonna work as hard as I can for 6 months. If it takes off, I'm running with it, and if it doesn't, I'll go back to school. And I really didn't want to go back to school, so
That is awesome. It's almost like I'm sure you've heard this saying. If you haven't, it's gonna blow your mind. But there's like this general who was at war
Mhm.
and they dock their boats, unload everything, and he burns the boats. And he shows his troops there's no way off this island except through them.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so he was like, don't think that you're gonna run back and steal a boat and get back home. No, like you need to
Yeah.
go through them. And so me and my friend, we have this saying, like it's just like, hey, burn the boats, man. Like if
Burn them.
sometimes when you really need to make something work, you legit have to burn plan B and plan C. And it's terrifying,
Yeah.
but sometimes that's where like all that power comes from. It's like knowing that there is no other option.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's what my husband says. He's also an entrepreneur, and so he always says like if you are so like if you're always thinking I have a plan B, like you're not gonna work as hard to make plan A work because you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I've got like something to lean on. But when you know there's like no boat to get back, like that's the only way to go.
Exactly. It's awesome. Yeah. So you kind of mentioned travel
Hmm.
photography and then wedding photography. Was there any other types of photography that interested you and what made you land on wedding photography?
Yeah, I loved like the video. She would like go, this girl would go to like Europe and make videos with like songs I loved, and I just loved like I always wanted to travel really bad. I loved like
Hmm.
seeing other cultures, and that's why I like always say I felt like I was in a shoebox because there was like not just like my state, but there was so much more in other countries I wanted to see. Like I had a really deep like love for
Hmm.
travel. I went in high school to a Young Life camp in Canada, and that like it woke my like love for travel and like my passion for it.
Hmm.
And so I that definitely like pulled me in when I started watching those, and then it just kind of made its way over to like on YouTube suggested like here's a wedding video, and I was like okay. And I remember the first one I watched was by Blink Films. And it was just this, it was such a well told like wedding video. And I like the story was really emotional because the mom of the bride had passed 2 weeks before the wedding. And this filmmaker like made it so like she told the story so well, and I will never forget watching that. That's what made me fall in love with videography, like wedding videography, was I was like, wow, like you can really tell a whole story and like evoke emotions out of people.
Yeah, that is, yeah, that's so awesome. I think that's the one thing that like, cause like me and my wife, we love movies too. So we like
Mhm.
cinematography. We're just like, very like hobbyist when it comes to watching movies.
Yeah.
And we go to so many movies and we're just like, okay, the cinematography was phenomenal, but the
Mhm.
story was awful.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't evoke any emotion. It doesn't like stick with you. Like sure, like the lighting was perfect and like the
Mhm.
editing was phenomenal. The composing was awesome, but it's
Yeah.
like, okay, so it's almost like this really cool thing that someone with like even like a cell phone camera who's
Yeah.
who has a story to tell can move you more than someone with a $10,000
It's true.
cinematography setup, you know?
Hmm.
I just love the it's almost like a I don't know, it's just like a power. You know, it's like
Yeah.
once you feel it and you're like, okay, I want to harness that because that's
Yeah,
awesome.
exactly. And I think like stories are what grasp us, and I'm like really pulled in by stories.
Hmm.
And so I realize like I can tell other people's stories that are told like are told for generations and generations. Like I still hear about my grandparents' love story and my husband's grandparents, and like those are stories that are told for generations, and I can have like a little part in that.
That is awesome. That's
Hmm.
beautiful. Um, so excuse me. Um, So from you, you said you had 6 months to make this work.
Hmm.
At how long did it take you before you were like you got like the first big check or like you were fully booked out to where you were like, oh yeah, like this is gonna
Hmm.
work.
Yeah, I think. I'm trying. There wasn't like an exact moment where I was like, "Oh, I can. This is gonna happen." Like, I was living with my parents at the time, so it wasn't really ever like a huge, massive jump where I was like, "This could risk it all and put it all on the line." I mean, there was some risks. Like I remember when I decided to buy a camera, like I had used my mom's old camera, but I realized I needed to upgrade. And I remember when I bought like all the gear I needed, I had $600 to my name, and I was like, oh my word. So that's like a moment where I'm like, okay, yeah, that was a risk. But a lot of other people's stories are like where they were living on their own and having to make, and I was blessed enough to be like living with my parents, and so
Hmm.
it wasn't like that huge thing. I think I kind of realized I needed to make the shift when I was basically like I knew I would have to work hard to like have the money to supplement my business because I didn't make much for a while. Just because you're like I took a lot of jobs for really cheap or for free just to like get something. And so I kind of knew like I needed a lot to like fuel me. So at the time when I decided to go full time with this, or when I decided I was gonna pursue this, at the time I was nannying a 1 month old baby,
Okay.
and I was caregiving for a family of three boys with special needs. So, like, what a like day in the life looked like for me was I would wake up at like 7 or 8. I think it was
Hmm.
even earlier than that, honestly. Go over to the 1 month old, like, and take care of him until like 3. And then like whenever he would nap, I would just try to work on things for my business.
Mm.
And then I'd like literally run home, change, grab dinner, go to the next job with the three boys with special needs. And then like once they went to bed, I'd work on my business. And then after that, like I'd usually be done at like 9 or 10 and then go home and work until like midnight on my business, trying to like, make guides and make my Instagram and build my website and all these things. And so I think I realized like when I needed, like it was holding me back because I did come home and I was doing school at the community college just because everyone was really hoping I would give it just like one more semester. And then after that, I was like, I'm done. Um, but once I realized that like if I could have taken that time and put it into my business, like I was starting to see that it was gaining traction and picking up. I realized that like everything else was just stealing my time. And so I just was like, I need to like have that time to put into it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. And
Hmm.
so now here you are full time,
Hmm.
which congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Like I said, I know we talked about this in messages, but like my wife, she's currently working on going full time, and
Yeah,
it's scary, but
it is. It is. It's a huge risk, and it's not just like a thing that happens. I mean, Rome wasn't built in one day, so it's
exactly.
like
Well, my
it's hard
favorite,
to get
yeah,
there.
exactly. My favorite saying. This is from my late grandfather. He was, and his. If you asked him, he was the funniest person who's ever lived. He used to tell me that Picasso didn't build Rome in a day, which
Yeah.
is just like completely like, okay, that is,
You're like, wait a sec.
yeah, wait a second, that's hilarious, but like, it catches you off guard at first.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my favorite saying because, like I said,
That's so funny.
he's passed on now, but he was hilarious, and yeah, it's just a much better way of putting that. Picasso
Yeah.
didn't build Rome in a day, so
Yeah.
very good. Okay, so on your Instagram, you have that you do Super 8.
Hmm.
So I'm married to a photographer, so I kind of know what it is, but
Yeah.
most people have no idea what that is. And
Yeah.
can you explain to like the layperson what Super 8 is?
Oh yeah, I'm like kind of a history nerd about this, so I could talk all day about it. So Super 8 is basically the like oldest ever home video camera.
Hmm.
So a lot of people like I'll be at weddings and like an older like grandpa will come up to me. He's like, I used to film all my home videos on that. Like it's kind of an iconic thing. And what makes it even more iconic is so the film that was being used for it back in I think it was I don't even know the exact time frame. I think it was the like 1980s, maybe 70s. I could be so wrong on that. But back then the film, like everyone, that was kind of like everyone had a Super 8 in their house, and that was like standard home video camera. Everyone has it on Super 8. Probably a lot of our grandparents do actually. Like my grandpa does, my grandma does. And so that was like kind of just like standard. Everyone had a Super 8. And then eventually the people that were making it, I believe it was Kodak, they had to raise their prices because of like the economy at the time, and it ended up getting to a point where it was just way too expensive for anyone to afford. And so the business shut down. So there was literally no Super 8 film to buy anywhere. And if it was like a really rare thing. And so basically like Super 8 home videos went extinct, which a lot of people loved that like vintage feel, and like home style feel. And so it wasn't until I think like 10 years later there was another brand that had come out, and they were able to come up with the film and make it more affordable again. So it was like this iconic comeback of like, and it's still not cheap, but
Okay.
um, it's like a more affordable for people. And so it made this comeback because no one thought it would ever come back and be able like for people to use. But it's just really fun to add another medium. It's so different from what I'm used to. Like with me, like on a digital camera, I could take the video, look back at it, watch the whole thing. Super 8, you can't see that. And so it's kind of taught me like to be more intentional about my shots and like really
Mm,
think like this is my one shot. I got to be like thoughtful about like my composition and where I'm putting people, what I'm gonna get here and have an idea behind it. Because I can take as many videos as I want on my digital
right.
camera. And then how it works after that is I ship off my film to California. And so, like, for me, like, that's always like different too, because with a digital camera, I just come home, put it on my computer, and we're good.
Right.
Put it on a hard drive. And so I ship it off to California and they develop it in their negative film lab. And then they just send it back over to me digitally. So it's like
Dude,
it's quite the science.
that is awesome. Like I
Yeah.
didn't even so I kind of knew that it was like vintage home video. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that it's like I guess you kind of answered this, but I'll re-ask it just to re-emphasize. So just to clarify, this isn't like a digital product that looks like Super A. This is like
Nope.
legitimate ancient technology.
Yeah, so it's like a little square and then it has like the roll inside and it just like puts it flat onto that roll and then that's what they develop. So
Wow.
like I have it from our wedding and I have the string so I can if I hold it up to light I can see like the frames. It's really cool.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is super awesome. Okay. So with that being said, being jack of all trades, you
hmm
obviously have a um you obviously have a style.
hmm
So how would you describe in 3 words like what your style is, what you're trying to actually like deliver?
Yeah, so I would definitely say documentary for starters. On wedding day, I take a fly on the wall approach to your day, and so there's not a forced narrative for my couples to be following. I think people just like feel awkward when there's a forced narrative. There's never no like, okay, fake laugh coming from me. I
Okay.
think people feel really awkward in that
Mhm.
space when there's like a forced narrative that they feel like they have to perform to. I think people
Mhm.
just like do well when they are just them. There was one wedding I had that they had kind of mentioned to me about wanting it to feel slowed down and like, feel present through the day. And so during our bridals, I wanted to emphasize like into that. And so, instead of bridals being like a checklist thing, I wanted to like find a way to make it intentional for them and meaningful to them. And so I just had him go sit in the lawn and I had her like lay her head on his lap and I just let them do their thing and like let them talk. He was playing with her hair. It was a really sweet moment and there wasn't anything forced going on.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and people just do well in their natural state. So I would definitely say documentary raw. I use a lot of raw noise throughout the film, of just like even little conversations. I always say like if you watch other wedding videos, you'll see like ceremony and speeches, which is great, and I incorporate that too. But I also throw in like little raw no raw sounds of like maybe little conversations going on because I don't ever want to approach any wedding day like it's just another wedding day. Um,
Hmm.
every wedding day has such unique things, and like all those little unique things are so special to you once you are married because you're like,
Hmm.
no, that was my day, so that's why it's special.
That is
And
awesome.
so when there's little moments or like people laughing, I like to like always lay that over like the music or whatever it is. So definitely documentary raw. And then I would also say, like in a luxury kind of way. It's a home video elevated, so you're still feeling like the candid movement, but definitely more movement based for sure.
Okay. That is awesome. Yeah, I actually really, really like that throw, um, just real sounds from the wedding in there.
Yeah,
Because I feel like, and this is me using my cinematography brain again,
yeah,
it makes the world feel like bigger and dynamic. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
and it's so interesting because like a lot of newer movies, they've completely gone away from that style. But if you watch movies in
So,
like the 70s,
yeah.
the whole set will be talking and
Hmm.
the camera will be like trying to focus on the main characters, but
Yeah.
you have to like almost, it feels like you're eavesdropping watching this movie as you're trying to hear what the main characters are. And it's like there's something so real and so raw about that.
It
And
transports you into that space. Like, and that's
yeah,
what I'm about is I want my brides to look back and feel like they're right back in that same space that they were in. And that's like kind of the power of raw footage is it transforms you that you feel like you're actually there.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay. Um, I'm trying to think because I'm trying to decide if I'm gonna transition to like the more business sided questions or if I
Yeah.
want to stay on with like the
Hmm.
artistry of your work.
Yeah.
What was the I had one more question, I think. Anyways, it'll come back to me, and there's
Okay.
nothing wrong with going back if that happens. So, with that being said, I okay, perfect. It just
There we go.
there it is. Okay. So my wife and I
Hmm.
have also done modeling. Have you and your husband modeled before?
Yeah, we've done modeling for styled shoots, but then we also modeled for a local bridal boutique in Colorado called Something New.
Okay.
So we did their runway and done their magazines and all that.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, what is your favorite cue as a like photographer doing a styled shoot as
Yeah.
opposed to like actually being a model? What's a cue that you feel like always just produces the best pictures?
I feel like anything that is just like natural movement, so like chasing each other around or
Right.
like him giving her a twirl, like just things that don't feel like pose. Like there was one time we were at a shoot and we weren't even married yet, so we were dating or maybe we were engaged, but we were in front of like, 7 or 8 photographers and someone goes, "Make up some vows for each other." And I was like, I don't know about this.
Yeah. That's just
I just think like, and that was kind of where I like kind of figured like I've been in front of a camera my whole life because my mom took photos of me and we modeled as kids too. But for someone who's never been in front of a camera, we were okay with it, but for someone who never, and a lot of my brides like have never been in front of a camera until their wedding day, or maybe like not a professional camera. It ranges, between.
Mhm.
But a lot of people haven't been in front of a camera, and so to feel like they have to do something like that's not them is
Right.
very awkward. And so I always just like things that are natural, like where we can actually just like laugh and it is actually fun. Like there's
Mhm.
one shoot that we did with our puppy, and she just had us like literally running around and just like having fun. It kind of didn't even feel like she was like there sometimes. We were just like running around like being kids. And
Mhm.
that's how it felt. Like it felt like we were just like transported back to being kids and running around in a field. I just love those shots the most.
Yeah, that's awesome. I
Mhm.
think kind of going back to what you first said, uh, the like faking the vows thing. I think for people who like aren't married, don't sometimes photographers don't realize that like a couple wants their first vows to first of all not be fake, and second of all to be at their wedding. So
Yeah,
like
it's so awkward.
it's so weird, and it's like we've had models that have like been offended or like they told like the host of the styled shoot after the fact that they found that offensive.
Yeah,
And so like me and yeah, like my wife, she never asks like an engaged or a dating couple to do that. She'll only ask a married couple because it's like,
yeah,
okay, you've already actually done your vows,
yeah,
so the special moment you had it, but now we can try to like replicate it on
yeah,
shoot. So
yeah. Yeah, no, it was definitely my husband's not like a super like emotional guy, and so he was just like, "What?"
yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's awesome. Yeah, on the spot. That's tough,
Yeah.
dude.
Like
That's
in front of like 8 people you just met, he was like, "Ugh," and, we just looked at each other and we didn't know what to do.
were you guys like close enough to where they could hear what you guys were saying, or were you guys super
I
far
think
out?
we just didn't even end up saying anything to each other. I think we just talked about something else.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so so me and my wife have done that, but like we were so far away that they thought we were saying something sweet to each other and we were not. We were just like making jokes and like
Yeah, just
poking at
laughing.
each other and like
Yeah.
just, but they didn't hear what we were saying.
I didn't know what was going on.
Exactly. But to them, they're like, oh my gosh, they're saying like poetry. And it's like, no, we're not.
Nope.
But it looks like it. Uh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I think my wife and I, the funniest, so obviously she's in that space.
Yeah.
I'm only in that space because of her. And
Yeah.
so the funniest cue for me was when a photographer told us to touch teeth.
Oh yeah, that
I
is
was like, excuse me? Like you
yeah,
want us
no,
to
that is a common pose a lot of photographers like. For me, for video, it's like not my favorite because it just ends up like looking really weird on video.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I I just like to get people like really natural prompts that would just like be something they would do like normally. So like run around, play
Mhm.
tag. I really like that one of just like running around kind of teasing each other, can't get each other, that kind of
Right.
but there's all different types of approaches that photographers have to shooting. We've done them all.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's such a like a close knit community, I feel like that
Yeah.
everyone shares prompts with each other. And so chances are if you've like modeled for a year, you've done
You
most.
learn a lot from it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of started doing modeling just to kind of like make connections, but then also kind of learn. And you do learn a lot being on the other side of the camera, for sure.
Yeah. I think it's definitely made like it increases your empathy as well as like it also like increases like uh I guess how you would articulate the cue
Yeah.
because you've probably as a model like someone's told you to a cue and you're like I have no idea what you want me to do. And
Yeah.
you're not articulating what you want
Yeah.
enough. And
Yeah.
so and I've experienced that too like where someone was like I want you to do this and then we do it and they're like that wasn't it and it's like okay well
Yeah.
articulate like to
Yeah, I feel
more
like I
instruction.
usually just act it out for them. Like I'll just grab the other photographer and be like, "This is what I want you to do," and then they
Yeah,
can like see it because I just feel like when you're explaining, like people are like, "Wait, this hand," or I just think people do better like seeing it, and so
absolutely.
and I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't like been on the other side of the camera.
Yeah, for like the like I said the for like the first like year of my wife like trying to go full time,
Uh-huh.
she was parading me around like a prop, just like taking me to all of her shoots so that she could do that.
Yep.
Like, okay, this is what I want you to do. Come here.
Yep.
And then she would like do it with me and then so but now she's gotten a lot better at like actually articulating it and so like now she doesn't need a
Yep.
prop, thankfully. I
If
still
you're
sometimes
married,
do.
yeah. If you're married to a wedding vendor or like a photographer or videographer, you just end up being like the free laborer. It's just be
Exactly. Yep. Just slave labor. It's awesome.
like
You also, I think you know Daryl, right?
Daryl. Yeah, I have. I've worked with her at a styled shoot before.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, we just did a trip to Arizona,
Oh,
and
fun.
me and her husband Chris, we were
Hmm.
just the whole time like, we don't have free will on this vacation, dude. Like, we're just like, they're
No
just
free
taking
will.
us from location to location, telling us what to do. But it
Yep.
turned out beautiful.
There you go.
So absolutely. Okay, so now to like kind of like transition into like a little bit more of the business stuff. Um, What is kind of your like intake process with clients and how do you help them manage expectations as well as like ensuring that they're the right fit for you, if that makes
Yeah. So I'll usually have them like send in an inquiry form and it kind of includes like a lot of like important details. So like venue, all that, but then also like I ask them to send their Pinterest link so I can kind of get an idea if we have the right vision for each other. Like for example, if I get a bride who has a like wedding idea for like a very dark theme, like dark colors and like blacks and
moody
purples. Like,
or
yeah, like if that's their wedding palette, I do very like light natural coloring. And so I would probably tell them I won't be the best fit for you. That's not really my style. Here's some videographers that do, shoot that way. My coloring when I edit is very bright, true to color. And so, but there are videographers who do like the darker, like moodier,
yeah.
style. But if someone like immediately off the bat, usually I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be able to serve you best. You do a lot better, having someone serve you. They would serve you a lot better if that's their style.
Yeah.
So that is kind of a quick way for me to know. And then also just, I have them put their dates, so we know we're available, all those things. And then we'll hop on a call. So once they inquire, I get back to them, give them a link to, you know, schedule a call with me and everything. And I even ask like in that inquiry form, like how they met, to hear a little bit about their story. And sometimes people love like getting to share. Sometimes they don't leave it as, they don't put as much, but I feel like when the bride really like wants to, share about that and they leave me like a good leave me a, sometimes if they leave it blank, I'm like, I don't know if we will connect because I'm a very emotional
Mhm.
videographer. So like I'm capturing a lot of emotions. And so I typically will work better with the bride who like wants to feel all the feelings and so that's also really helpful right away because it kind of lets me know if we're gonna connect or not.
Right.
Because I always tell brides like if I do reach out to a bride and I'm like, hey, just wondering if you're wanting to move forward with booking, I will always encourage them to just go with who they connect with best.
Mhm.
Because your photographer and videographer are with you more than anyone else during the day, even your groom.
Mhm.
So like it's really important, one, that you love their work, but also that you just get along. And so a huge part of my process is I'm showing up on your day as a friend and not a stranger. And so I do tell my brides if you're looking for a videographer who's going to show up, do the job, and send you the video, I'm not the person for you. I'm very relational. I've always told my stories best when I've known the couple really well and we've built like some kind of relationship. And so on the call, like I'm not there to just chat business. Like I want to hear about how you guys met and like just wanting, I have the gift of letting people feel cared for and loved on. And so that's like the heart of my business is to love people. And so in that like half-hour call, I want to know about like them as people and not just okay, here's my package. Here's the money, like give me the
Right,
money.
exactly.
Like,
Pay me.
that's not what I'm there for. It's just my business is deeply, deeply relational. I love just getting to show up and like I still talk to so many of my brides and like there's been two brides already that I'm one of the first people that know that they're pregnant. And like things
Wow.
like that, like I just love like seeing it like flourish even later on, that we can just be like friends. And like even I had a wedding in Italy this last year and we met them on their honeymoon and went out to dinner with them. And so things like that, like it's just a very relational business. And it's just important that you are very, like, even if a bride came to me and felt like we didn't click on the call, I 1,000% want her to go with the vendor that she really did click with.
Right.
And if
Right.
we don't have, similar, just like visions, that's a huge thing too. Like if we just don't have the same vision, I will always say like I think someone else might be a better fit for you. But yeah, after that call, we kind of like get a feel for each other and we're able to have like very face to face. I would never just do like a phone call. I just feel like face to face is really important to know like who's
Yeah.
showing up on your wedding day. And I want them to see me too, like that I care about presentation and
Mhm.
that I'm not just like a socially awkward person that's gonna make you feel uncomfortable. Like
Right.
those are all just really important things. And then from there, like if things all match up and we connect, we get the contract signed. And then a month before the wedding, I send out a super detailed questionnaire, getting like all the details just because I care a lot about my bride's vision. So it covers like everything from like people to situations. I need to be sensitive, all of that. And then wedding day.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is like yeah, I love that. I feel like an inception moment because it's the same thing for like for me with this podcast. Like I don't
Yeah.
I do this podcast because I love sharing other people's stories, but also I love meeting people from,
Yeah.
around the world, ideally. This so far the I've done um I've interviewed someone from Boston, two people from Tennessee, including you, a few
Mhm.
people in Colorado, or I think the rest have been in Colorado. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, by the end of the life of this podcast, ideally, I will have met everyone like
Yeah.
from all around the world, and
So
like
cool.
that is like so much cooler and lives on in like our lives
Mhm.
farther than like the whatever the podcast does. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Hmm.
Those relationships carry on like forever. And so to
Yeah.
me, that's one of like the cool things. And that's why like even on this call, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna hit record right away. Like let's talk,
Yeah.
let's get to know each
Uh-huh.
other so that you don't just like sign on and it's like, all right, recording on, and you're like, okay,
Yep.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm in the fire. That's awesome. Yeah, okay. So like one of the things that you said that was super interesting that I just want to like re-emphasize for anyone who's listening is like the Pinterest link thing. I've never heard of that. Like I said,
Yeah.
I'm not a photographer myself, so it's possible that that's a common thing, but like
Yeah.
it might not be, and like that's a great way um for people to just like automatically, okay, like based on your Pinterest, like we're just not gonna click. And that's
Yeah.
not, that's not a value judgment. It's just a chemistry judgment, right? Like it doesn't mean anything about you as a client that you're a bad client or I'm a bad. No, it's just chemistry's not there.
It
And
might just be that someone else can serve better than I can in that space.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, that is awesome. So,
Mhm.
with that being said, so for growing your business, do you do any like paid advertising or is it all organic?
I do. I've kind of gone back and forth with this. So, for a while I was boosting my ads on Instagram, and I was doing a lot to the point where I think I broke my algorithm because like things wouldn't do well unless I paid for it.
Oh,
And
wow.
I did have a lot of luck with it. It's kind of just a lot of playing around with like the topics because there's like you can select topics and it's kind of a lot of playing around and seeing what like it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall, seeing what
Right.
sticks. And then I eventually found like what does stick and what works. And so I kind of did that, but then realized that like the algorithm, it likes when you're using its features that it has, but then when you don't, it like really ends up getting you because those ones were getting like
Mm.
no views. And so now I kind of just let things go. Like I'll post and then see like what the algorithm is naturally like favoring. So if I have a video that I put out, there's no boosting to it and it's already getting like within the first day like maybe like 4, 5, 6,000 something like that. I can tell it within like by the end of the day if a video is going to do well or not, just by the like attention it's getting and engagement. If it is naturally just getting put out by the algorithm, I will then boost it and like because it's showing that it's
I
doing
see.
well, so then I'll give it like an extra little push. But if there's other ones that aren't, I just keep them there or I'll take them down later on.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's actually an interesting strategy. Like see what is gonna do well organically and then also give it an extra boost.
Yeah.
That's an interesting strategy. I've never heard of that before. But
Yeah.
it makes so much sense because if it's like if you have a bad reel, boosting it isn't
Isn't
gonna
gonna do
do
like you can have $1 million to put into ads, but if the content you're putting out isn't good, it's not gonna do anything for you and you're just
right.
wasting $1 million.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
like it's better to have like and even for the photographer who thinks that they have to post every day on Instagram, you don't. Just like it's better to post 2 times a week and make them really good posts that will actually
Right.
do well rather than trying to post every day.
Yeah, that makes sense. That
Mm.
makes sense. And so like w- I guess like what's the minimum effective dose you have found for specifically wedding photography in like boosting? Like if you have something that's doing well organically and you throw $10 a day at it, do you
Mhm.
find that that's sufficient? Or do you find that usually it's like $30 a day is necessary? Or like what's that number?
Yeah, I usually do it where I always spend $100 on each ad. And so I usually will stretch it over like 6-ish days to give it time. I'll usually like spread it out over 6 days. And just every time I've done 100, I feel like it does well. And you can toy around with like when you're doing it, you can toy around with like, oh, what would $100 look like stretched over 3 days or 6 days? And you can see like the amount of profiles it'll reach.
Right.
Um, so I've always just done like $100 over 6 days.
$100 over 6 days. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that actually like that doesn't and what's so crazy is like some people would hear that and like some people are like so scared to invest in their own business, but it's like
Yeah.
$100 is really not that much, you know?
Exactly. And that's the thing is it's like, okay, I put like there's been times where I tell people, yeah, I put like $100 into my posts that do well. And they'll be like, geez, that's a lot. And I'm like, okay, no, if I get because I mean usually from each post that I do, I get about 4 to 5-ish inquiries. And if I
Okay.
even just get like say it dwindles down to then just
Right.
um one booking. So like if you get 4 to 5 attention, I get a lot of, it funnels down to that.
Right.
Um even that one, if that's like a $5,000 wedding, then
Yeah,
like
it's
$100
literally
off,
a
that's easy.
yeah, it's a no-brainer. Like if you go
Yeah,
up to anyone on the street and say, "Hey, give me $100 and I'll give you 5,000."
yeah,
Okay, like I'll do it. Like it's so
yeah.
common sense. there are like slightly other factors to that, obviously. Like, okay, I'm putting $100 because the one thing that for a lot of people who are like, they have like tighter financial situations, it's like, okay, if you give me $100 in 8 months, you'll get 5,000. And that it's that like time that
Hmm.
like scares them because it's like, okay, well then what if they cancel and all of these
Yeah.
questions? But it compounds over time. Um,
Yeah.
and it's
Hmm.
always worth it over time. I mean, like even just calculating if you did $100 a week every single week, that's $5,200 a
And
year.
to put that into like, and I mean, if you look at a lot of other businesses, like the money they're putting into their ads is so much more. And so,
Hmm.
like, it is important to invest back into your business. And like, I mean, it's hard to figure out what sticks for a while. Like I probably have spent 2000 that maybe didn't help me because, or maybe not 2000, maybe that's a stretch. But of just like, because there's the topics that you select, and sometimes if you do like too much of like wedding, 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 you end up just having a bunch of wedding vendors following you, and you're like, well, that wasn't the goal. And that's what
Right.
I got stuck in for a really long time. And so sometimes it's just playing with different words and seeing like what kind of works. That was the only way I was able to move my business over to Tennessee was through ads.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense.
I wouldn't have, I don't know if I would have been able to without like specifically boosting my posts to different to like Tennessee. I
Yeah.
don't know how because then all of a sudden like none of my inquiries were Colorado, they were just all Tennessee
Wow.
because
Yeah,
of
so
how
that's
many
almost
ads I
all ads for sure.
yeah.
That's
I don't
awesome.
know what I would have done without
That is awesome. Okay. Just a side note, I'm going to be playing with this thing because it demands my attention. So if you see me fiddling around with this right hand, it's just me playing with my dog.
I've been petting mine the whole time too.
Yeah, she said you have stopped petting me for an hour and it's my time now. So, um, in terms of like ads, are you just boosting like your Instagram? Are you doing like Facebook ads or
Yeah, I tried to get into the world of Facebook ads and it was really confusing and just didn't make much sense to me. For me, like I found what works, it's networking and it's Instagram and like
yeah,
I networking is definitely my strength. And so with those two, I feel like I'm good.
yeah,
Um, a lot of it's word of mouth. With being a videographer, like when I find a photographer I click with, a lot of my work ends up just coming from them or a planner. And so that part's really nice. Networking is definitely like my I would say that's a really big part of my inquiries, but then also Instagram is helpful along the way.
yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
So you mentioned like networking. What is like the I guess the highest value relationships like in the
Hmm.
wedding photography space? Like I would imagine it would be a wedding planner. Uh,
Yeah.
is that accurate to say that?
I would say so, but also like I feel like photographers are huge too because if I have a friend like here for example in Tennessee, I have a friend that's a wedding photographer. I adore her style. Her personal branding is like some of the best personal branding I've ever seen from a photographer. And so because like her and I like instantly clicked, she's one of my like first friends here. Um, because we instantly clicked, like she was more than happy to recommend me to her brides. But she's already drawing in like the brides that have for example, her style is very like pink and like colorful, like cottage
Mm,
kind of vibes, like luxury.
right.
And I love color. Like I love working with the bride that loves color and has like a vision, and all of her brides have a vision. And
Hmm.
so for me to like find a photographer who has a specific niche, then like all the weddings I've gotten, she's recommended a lot. All the weddings I've gotten from her recommending me are all like fun, colorful, like my kind of weddings that I'm really excited. Like I love working with really colorful weddings, and brides with like a distinct vision. And that's all that I've gotten from her recommendations. Sometimes planners do and don't have a niche. I feel like planners don't really have a niche until they're in the luxury market, and I could be wrong,
Right.
but I feel like some of the like big, planners that are still getting into it don't have a niche. They are kind of just like stepping in, but eventually, like once you're in the luxury market, they're like picking and choosing.
Right.
And so I could see how planners would be helpful like later down the road. But I feel like at the start for a lot of people, it's like for the videographer, I guess, would definitely be like making connections with photographers. If you're a photographer, I would say probably planners or just other photographers that aren't
Yeah.
available, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, and so, yeah, I think that like checks out too, because like almost all of, like I said, my wife, her business has benefited the most when she's networking with other photographers because
Yeah.
they unlike wedding planners who might not understand like style.
Hmm.
Like if you get a client and they're like, "Yeah, this is my style."
Hmm.
You're educated enough to like say, "Okay, then this is your photographer. Like I'm going to send you to this person because
Yeah.
they actually are going to pull the most." Whereas like an experienced wedding planner might start to understand photography like lingo and styles, but not not as deeply as someone who's in the business. So,
Yeah, I think like especially like the planners that have been in the game for a while definitely have like more of a distinct style of bride or a more like narrowed down client. And I mean that's the goal of any business is to get down to your like
perfect
niche
client.
client
Yeah.
versus you start broad and kind of narrow down. But I do think like as you climb the industry and you have more years, more skin in the game, the planners are definitely like there's because I mean there's certain planners that only take luxury weddings with a budget over I don't know a
fifty
certain budget.
thousand
Like I
dollars or
know,
a hundred
yeah,
thousand
I
dollars.
know that there's planners that you can only work with them if your budget is over this, and so you know that wedding is gonna look a lot different than others. And so yeah, I definitely think as you climb the market, there's certain planners that work with more distinct brides.
Hmm.
I definitely think I have a perk being a videographer because I mean every bride is booking photographer first most of the time.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna be like, "Oh, while you're here, do you have a videographer?" So it kind of is really
Exactly.
for me.
Yeah, exactly. And you're just like, oh, I'll just do both.
Yeah, and I did a mentorship call the other day actually with a really talented photographer and videographer, and she was saying like there's so many opportunities that I wouldn't have ever gotten if I had just if I'd never done videography too on the side of photography. Like she's working with one of the top photographers like in the US, and
Mm.
she's like I would have never gotten that opportunity if I was a photographer because they hired me as a videographer, so I get to work with her the whole day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's
That is
just
awesome. Yeah.
videographers definitely have an advantage.
Yeah, and I actually have a friend who he's just went full time
Hmm.
videographer at the same time of having his first child. So,
Wow,
yeah, he is like
a lot.
it's a lot, but he's super blessed and he's staying busy and so um happy to see him succeed, but
Yeah.
I've like watched his like progression, and it really does seem like there's this like weird edge that videographers have. Like it's almost like that it's less saturated.
Oh, so like 1,000% so much less saturated, and that's why
Yeah.
I'm like I feel like I was able to pick up. I went because I went full time within like 6 months of starting, and I think that was because like of the videographer market is so like it's just so there's not a lot of videographers honestly like compared
Yeah.
to the photographer market there's a lot it's very saturated like it's like in Colorado and Nashville like very saturated so I do feel like there is like a videographer privilege in a
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, like, and it's so sad, but it's like the term photographer even is like every girl in high school is a photographer, and so it just like completely waters down the term. And for a long time in like my friend groups in Denver, there's a saying that if everyone's a photographer, then no one's a photographer. And it's that just literally narrows down exactly what we're talking about. That like unfortunately there's so many photographers, and like we're not shaming any high school girls that want to pick up a camera. But maybe I wish there was a more like I guess a different term for it, like
I think what it is that the entry level, like there's not a lot of jobs where the entry level is like minimal. Like, I
yeah,
mean, the entry level to our jobs is have a camera. The
exactly.
thing is who stays. Like
Exactly.
it's not that I mean the entry level is so easy and so
Low.
I do think I mean just get a camera and get a wedding on Facebook or something, you know.
Exactly.
But it's the people that like stick with it and stay that are the ones that make it.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's so interesting. So okay, so with that being said, how do you so moving into like more of like the faith related questions, how do you incorporate your faith into like your work life balance? Like, do you feel like you've struck a good balance with like work and life, or how is
Yeah.
that for you?
Yeah, I definitely think like as an entrepreneur, it's important to get rest. Especially like during busy season, it can just feel like a lot because I mean, people would say you're just working one day on the weekend, but you're also like having a massive queue of like 20, however many weddings you're doing, like stacking on top of each other. And when it is busy season, and especially if you're traveling, you don't always have a lot of time to sit down and edit. I think it's just important to find time to rest. I feel like as a business owner, like for me, my brain like never turns off of business. I feel
Yeah.
like the first thing I wake up, I'm thinking about my business, and when I go to bed, I'm thinking about my business.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just need to like shut my brain off and like for any other like 9 to 5, you go to work, your like work brain for 9 to 5, and then you go back to your personal life. But for me,
Yeah.
like this is my apartment and this is my office and my
Yeah,
room.
exactly.
And so I think that there's like you have to have boundaries to like be like, okay, I'm not gonna do this right now because I can work whenever I want. I can work till 3 a.m. I can work. And so it's definitely important to find rest. And I feel like the thing that like resets me is like Sundays I don't work at all.
Wow.
I've recently implemented that because I just realized like I do need that day to refill my cup and like also like another thing people don't talk about is like being a creator is a gift from God. Like we are created by the creator to create. And
Exactly.
so like getting that inspiration to create comes from the creator himself. And so sometimes you do need
Exactly.
to take a break from we live in a world that's so much of like what's the word? Consumption rather than
Yes.
creating.
Yes.
And I've like felt convicted about that this year is just like I am consuming way too much on Instagram
Yep.
and I wanted to create like I had this desire for a while to create something unique and I'm like how am I ever going to create something unique if I'm like
Yep.
consuming but then I'm not spending time with my creator who has given me the talent to create.
Yeah.
Um and so that like I had felt so convicted about that and so even just having times where like I just recently implemented this in my business this year of just like asking the Lord to help me create and like work through
Mm.
me. There was I wish I could think of it, but there was a quote that was just talking about like he creates through us because the Holy Spirit is always moving through us. And
Right.
so like with our gifts, like God is working through us. And I don't think I was ever thinking of it that way. I think I was just thinking like, oh, I'm just a wedding videographer,
Right.
just
Yeah.
like there's just so much more meaning to it when you think like the Holy Spirit is working through me. He's giving me the like creative intuition and the flow and like he's what's doing all this up here. And so like, it's really common that I go through like a creative like drought where it's hard. I'm just constantly creating and then I have no other ideas. And just like leaning on the Lord and asking him to work through me.
Yeah.
I feel like that's changed my business a lot. I've just been trying to bring the Lord into my business a lot more. I mean, I started the business as Agape Films, and so I always want him to be like the forefront. And so I'm always finding new ways to kind of pull him into it.
Hmm.
I want to even continue to pull him in even more, like with community. I don't really know what that looks like yet, but maybe like in the wedding vendor industry, I don't know. Um, but something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely said a lot, and I like all of it was gems, and so I wanna give each thing that you said like proper attention and unpack that all because, first of all, I mean like even in the Genesis account, he rested on the seventh day, and so why
Yeah.
us humans thinking we can go like like little Energizer bunnies,
Yeah.
and not rest? It's honestly like.
Exhausting.
Yeah, it's kind of like arrogant, like we really do need to we need to rest, like all of us, like even like so I have a business outside of this, and me and my partner and all of my subcontractors, we all take Sunday off. We
Hmm.
do not accept any jobs on Sunday because, first of all, I don't want to work on Sunday. And then
Yeah.
two, I would never expect anyone else to work on a Sunday either. And
Yeah.
so, um, literally, like, sometimes like in people's business, they're like, oh, like, my business isn't necessarily something that I can like, bring God into. And it's like, well, that's a great way to start is just making sure that no one's working on a Sunday. Making sure that you are helping, like, obviously you are like a solopreneur, but
Mhm.
for people who are managing other people, um, making sure that they're having time for their own family. Like, why would
Yeah.
you take a man away from his family for, so long?
Hmm.
And it's debatable or not. I believe strongly that like you are morally culpable, if you are the vessel that's taking him away from his family. And so like, obviously you're married and I'm married. Um, our spouses need time with us,
Yeah. Hmm.
and also like, uh, so many people just find it so hard. It's like I see them working and working. It's like, where's time for God? Like, what are you?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
for me, what's nice is I'm always on my feet. And so I have earbuds and I always have either I'm listening to scripture or I'm listening to a podcast about scripture. And I try to do that every single day.
Yeah.
Um, and I have found like tremendous benefits in my mindset, even just a little bit of scripture every single day, getting it in there. It
Hmm.
has changed my life. And so
Yeah.
I'm super happy to hear you say all of those things. And then what? Okay, other than like the Sunday thing, what else did you mention? You mentioned oh yes, that God created us in his
Hmm.
image, and so there is like, we do have a creative gene in us,
Yeah.
but when it's not anchored to a good cause,
Yeah.
it gets lost.
Yeah.
And like I have found that personally that like when my like philosophy and
Mhm.
all of my mind is right, my mind literally like I get migraines thinking about things to create because it all just feels so anchored and you can kind of just feel it like flowing through you. It's almost like
Yeah.
wait, I never asked you this. How old are you?
I'm 22.
22. Okay. So do you remember like Disney XD, the Where's My Water alligator?
Yes.
It's like that's how I describe like my creative process. Like
Yeah.
you have God up here and
Mhm.
I have to like play the game Where's My
I
Water?
forgot about that.
Yeah, to get the creative juices
Yeah.
to get into the sink,
Yeah.
which is me. But if it's not if it's tied to the love of money or if it's tied
Mhm.
to the love of power, it's going to be such an uninspired worldview, you
Yeah.
know. Whereas
Hmm.
like the world truly gets beautiful, and as someone who is a photographer, videographer, and
Hmm.
Super 8 expert, we'll call you. Um, you have the power to capture like love, which
Hmm.
the Bible tells us that God is love.
Hmm.
And so there is that like immediate connection that you are literally like you're capturing almost an essence of God when you really like
Yeah.
get those sparks of like true love. It's awesome.
And that's where like agape comes from is agape is the sacrificial unconditional love of God.
Hmm.
And like First John 4:12 is kind of what my business is based. That's like the heartbeat of my business. And it says, no one's ever seen God, but if we love one another, his love abides in us.
Mm.
And so, like, to the people who don't know God, the way we love each other, like, God is abiding in that and
Yep.
it speaks for itself. Like, the way we're loving others is a reflection of God. And even, like, I can say that on the side of being a wife and being married, like, I experience, like, from my husband, like, I've never, the closest, like, earthly love that I can like, understand is, like, the way my husband loves me. And that doesn't even compare to the way, like, obviously my husband's amazing, but the way the Lord loves is even like more than what I can even imagine.
Yeah.
And so like agape love being, shown in everything we're doing and like throughout the wedding day, like God's in all those moments.
Yeah. That is awesome. Yeah. I mean, I'm not even gonna add to that because that was just really well said. But
Thank
I relate to everything you're saying. Like,
you.
when, I give love or receive love, it is like just that little glimpse, and then it just makes you stop and think like he loves us
Mhm.
infinitely more. Like
Much more. Yeah.
infinitely. And it like genuinely is enough to both blow your mind break your heart in all the best ways. And
Yeah.
it's just like it's powerful. It really is powerful. Um, and so okay, I think we've touched on a lot of topics,
Mhm.
and I think the last thing, the last question that I really want to ask is how do you define success and wealth as a Christian entrepreneur beyond just money?
Yeah. I would say a huge part of it is just like giving. I like to think like my issue in high school was that I always wanted like what I did to have like purpose, and like sometimes I would get in these like I remember when I was working at a boutique, I'm like, where's the purpose in this? Like what? And um I want to bring like purpose into everything I'm doing. I don't ever want it to just be like a fluid like, running through the motions. Oh, just another wedding day. Like I think if you can bring purpose into your like everyday
Wow.
um of your business, like that's huge. But then I also just think like I think like what this video does beyond me, and what that video does beyond me is like tell a story for generations to come. I love the song. What is it called? The song that's singing over like the generations to come. May his favor come before you and behind you and beside you, and then your family and your children. What is that song? The Blessing. I love that song. I think like I always am thinking about like generations and the blessing and like that
Mhm.
song. Like even at my wedding, we had all my grandparents and my parents come pray over us. And I just think like that those videos are to bless all the generations to come. Um, from then on out, like just one marriage in a family can change the entire like family
Wow.
tree. Just a marriage that like good and bad. One marriage can completely change an entire family tree. And marriages that are God honoring, that changes the whole trajectory of an entire line of people. And like you read the Bible and there will be a page where he just like the Bible just talks about the son of this, the son of him, the
Yeah,
son
yeah.
of him, and then the son of him.
Yeah.
And there's like obviously you're reading through it and you're like, okay, like
We get
yeah,
it.
but there's a point to him saying that like
Yeah.
everything that your family is doing, it goes so much farther down. And so I know what a blessing marriages can be to family lines.
Mhm.
And so if there's a video that can show that, and like even this Saturday I'm filming a wedding, and her dad passed away I think 2 years ago. And so that day is like deeply emotional for them. And she like had emphasized to me how important video was to her because I guess she told me that when her parents got married, their videographer had some kind of like issue and just ended up not filming. I don't know the whole story, but
Mm.
now like obviously they're bummed about it, but now that he's gone, like that means so much more. Like if they had, imagine if they had a video of their dad to look back on and watch and see the amazing man he was and how much he loved the Lord, and like that would have
Yeah.
meant so
Yeah.
much to them. And it doesn't take away from who he was at all, but like there's just there's such a strong power in video. It holds moments that, I mean, our life on earth is so short, and so the power of video goes so much farther beyond me. And I think like there's a lot of ways that um I can pray over that. I mean, I pray over my couples before my weddings. But I just think always having purpose, never just going through the motions, finding new ways to bless people, talking about God. And even if it's couples who get on a call with you that don't, maybe you don't know if they, believe in God or not, even just speaking out that my faith is a huge part of my business, like, and then they see how I show up on wedding day,
Yeah.
um, can be
Absolutely.
like, this is my mission and this is what God's called me to do. And it's not just like our church talked about like the roles God gives us. And so like fishermen, they were fishers of men, they were
Yeah.
disciples. Um, and me, like I'm a creator, that's my calling. But yes, I'm creating wedding films, but I'm also creating a space that people feel loved. I'm creating atmospheres that people feel blessed and cherished. And I'm creating atmospheres where people feel safe and like loved for who they are. And so it goes even just beyond me creating wedding films, but even just having the call of creator on my life has changed the way I approach and step into every day.
Yeah. That is awesome. I think that's a beautiful place to end it.
Mhm.
And so with that being said, thank you so much for taking this call
Of
and
course.
thank you for being patient with me being a little bit late. With that being said, to address the listeners, I finally got a Patreon, so you guys can support me on that. It's just my name, Daniel McCormick, And I also have a faith-based hoodie company called thewordwoven.com. I'll put a link in the description for that. Although I do think the store is like glitching, and so just give me some time to fix that. But if you want to check out the designs. And yeah, with that being said, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.